All right, we're moving into Daniel 3. And we're going to start with verses 1, 2, and 3. I may go off on a little tangent. Sometimes I do that. But we're going to... Anyway, okay. 1, 2, and 3. Daniel chapter 3. Now this is a whole different scene from the scene of Nebuchadnezzar's dream where he saw this character with a head of gold, chest and arms of silver, brass hips and so forth, and legs of iron, and feet of iron mixed with clay. This is a whole different situation. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent together the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces to come and to dedicate to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. Sometimes my mind gets to going into other things. What I was going to say about all this. Then the princes, the governors, the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the province were gathered together into the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up, and they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Okay. Well, you can't see that very good, but all I've said here is that chapter 3 covers chapter 2. Y'all want to know how I figured that out? Now, if you'll remember when we started, one of the things that I wanted to make sure everybody understands, that actually the book of Daniel is not chronologically in order. If you look at chapter 5, or the 5 up there, you see Belshazzar dies. Then in chapter 6, you see Cyrus and Darius take over the kingdom. Then in 7 and 8, you see Belshazzar's rule. Well, he died in 5. So you know that something's wrong here, because 7 and 8 are giving his rule. And then you have Darius' first year of reign. So in order to straighten it out, what you have to do is you have to take 7 and put it after 4, 8 and put it after 7, 5 and put it after 8, and then 6, and that puts it, straightens it all out. So I just thought, okay, I'd let you know that in the course of things that 3 is following 2 here, okay? I mean, I don't want to get too complicated, but 3 is following 2, okay? Yeah, we're going to deal with that. We're going to deal with that. The exact timing of chapter 3 is not clear, but if we look at any of the English translations, all it does is just tell us that it happened. It doesn't tell us when it happened. But if we go and look at the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Old Testament that was done about 300 BC, which would put it, way before Christ's time. But if we go and look at it, they do put a date on it. And here it is. This is from the Brenton English translation of the Septuagint. And what it says is that in his 18th year, Nebuchadnezzar, I guess, or something similar to that anyway, the king made a golden image. Its height was 60 cubits, its breadth 6 cubits, and he set it up in the plain of Dura or something in the province of Babylon. So if that's the case, if the Septuagint has that right, then we have the 18 years that it's talking about, plus the year of ascension of Nebuchadnezzar to the throne, which would give us 19 years. And if you look at historically, between 605, when they took Jerusalem the first time, the first siege, and in 593 you have 12 years. And then 7 years between that and 586 BC, when Nebuchadnezzar just flattened Jerusalem and destroyed the temple. So you have a total of 19 years. Now, the point being that if that is so, Daniel, who was 12 to 14 years old in the previous chapters that we read, is now somewhere in his 30s, along with the three Hebrew children. So we have, these young men that we were studying in chapter 1 and 2 now have grown, would have been at an age as grown-ups in the 30s. Just a matter of following information. Okay, he made an image of gold. Some have supposed that this image is a result of the dream that he had some years before that Daniel interpreted for him. And having seen an image in his dream then, he come up with this idea to build another image, which might be the case. We don't know. But anyway, though we're not certain, this may well be an image of Nebuchadnezzar himself. Now, how many of you think that might be the case? That it might be an image of him? Okay. We know that the image was entirely was a gold in appearance. So we know that from a distance you could see the gold. This reminds me of when we were in Israel. We were told that Saudi Arabia had furnished the gold that was on top of the Dome of the Rock, or the Mosque of Omar, and that those plates up there on top were a half-inch thick. Can you imagine how much money is on the top of that, if that being the case? Yeah. But anyway, that's what it gold. Of course, in Babylon, we know from history and from writings and everything, we know that back in those days, in some cases and nowadays, that the ruler was looked at as being divine in some way, a representation of whatever God he serves as being somewhat divine. You go to Egypt, and every pharaoh was a representative of some god, and in some way was supposed to be the incarnate representation of that god. And so we know that to worship that was signified the loyalty to that king. All of the above may be true. It may be that he built that image based on the dream that he'd had and thinking about it, or he may have built it just as an image of himself. All that may be true. But I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But the image probably wasn't solid gold. Can you imagine a 60 cubit by 6 cubit being solid gold? That would probably have stressed the resources of that kingdom. If you look in Isaiah chapter 40 and chapter 41, it talks about how they would build their images or God. And if you go over into the book of Jeremiah chapter 10, it also talks about what they would do would build a frame and then would overlay it with gold. And so that may be the case. All right, now we deal with this 60 cubits by 6 cubits. if a cubit, like most people today, say that it's 18 inches. If that is the case, then we have an image that is 90 foot high and 9 foot wide. That's what I want you to particularly pay attention to. So it's going to be 90 foot high, 6 foot wide, just using 18 inches. Now, Date's Bible, it says that the image was 125 feet high and 12.5 feet wide, and this is based on a 25-inch cubit. And you say, well, where did that come from? There are, I believe it's David Flynn, I believe is the guy's name that wrote a book that had to do with the temple being the center of the earth and all of this. But in that, he said, historically, we have evidence that from the time of Joseph in Egypt to the time of Solomon, that the cubit was 25.2 inches. So if that being the case, then we have a 125 foot by 12.5 foot figure standing here. Now, when I was employed, a lot of times I had to climb crew towers and all of this, And I have been up on 90-foot towers and so forth and so on and so we're talking about something that is quite high here. Continuing right on, if this is an image of Nebuchadnezzar, it's way out of proportion. Think about it. I mean, it's like 10 to 1, where if it were a man, the proportions would be maybe like 1 to 5, way out of proportion. That's why I kind of think that it's not an image of a man. And I'll get more into that here. See, the image would be, it'd look funny. If it was a man, it'd look really weird. You think my statue of the gold head and the silver arms and chest and the brass hips of the one that we studied about the dream and all that look funny? I mean, you got to picture this. This would really look odd, because it'd be way out of proportion, be really elongated. And of course, this probably rested on some kind of pedestal, which might kind of take care of some of that, odd. But I don't think it was an image. Now, what I'm going to say here from here on, maybe from here on, if I got to remember my notes. What I'm going to say from here on, it's just an idea. It's just maybe this is what it was, or this could be. You take it with a grain of salt, and if we need some salt shakers, there's some in the room in there. We can get them out there. But what I'm trying to say is, this is in no way a factual. But it is something that is a possibility. Maybe not a probability, but a possibility. What we're going to talk about. Consider this. How many of you know what an obelisk is? Okay. Obelisk. Yeah. Okay. An obelisk is a structure that has survived for thousands of years from pagan worship. In fact, the matter is, pharaohs in Egypt would try and outdo themselves. Each pharaoh that come to the throne would build him the obelisk and try and outdo the previous, you know, one. And of course, they would do it in Egypt to Ra and to their gods. And there was even a belief that, and I'll show you one of them in a little bit, but there was even a belief that the God would come down at some point and breathe into that structure. And that, you know, then marvelous things would take place, you know, and so forth and so on. So it was a structure that represented different gods. And it wasn't just in Egypt. They ended up in other parts of the world. That's why what I'm saying is, if we look at this dimension that is given to us of, let's stay with the 18-inch cubit, it's 6 cubits wide and 60 cubits high. We're looking at a structure that goes straight up. And those of you that have seen the obelisk, just remember what they look like.
Isn't it the one that's on our dollar bill that has an eye on top of it? And there's one out in the Lindale Cemetery. If you go out there and find the tallest structure out there, that's an obelisk. It's on our dollar bill. It comes up straight up and then it goes to a point.
It'll taper up. It'll slightly taper up, and then at the top it'll have the pyramid on.
Aren't there about 6 of them in New York?
Yes.
Washington D.C.
Lined
has
up with-
one, and so does Bag.
All right, y'all are getting way ahead of me here. Way ahead.
Well, if they want to see one, there's one in the Lindale Cemetery. Just find the tallest structure out there and you'll be looking at one.
That's right. But think about the structure think about the dimensions that are being given us here. If you apply it to a man, it's way out of proportion. Am I right? It doesn't, he would look weird. I mean, even weirder than some of us look, you know. He would really look weird. I wasn't talking about you. Now, but y'all get my point, right? You see what this structure is. It's just going to be, and he's going to set it out in this plain, and he's going to get all of the people to come around, and this is because of the history of the obelisk. It would be reasonable that he has erected this to his god, which would be Marduk or Baal, you know. Does it not? I mean, you know, like I say, I don't have concrete evidence here, but I'm just using
Common sense.
yeah, I get that. Thank you. Anyway. So we go now. Remember, the earliest we have obelisks that are they date back 3000 BC. In fact, you remember a lot of people associate Joseph's time with and the children of Israel gathering into Egypt. You know, when they were in Egypt in Joseph's time, with a ruler, Ramesses. Remember, you know, ever said Ramesses built, and they think that may not be true, but they think, you know, that he may have been the ruler at that time, and so forth and so on. Well, Ramesses built a temple at Luxor, and in front of that temple he erected 2 giant obelisks that stood right in front of that temple. Here's something else that puzzles me. You remember when Solomon built his temple? You remember that the Bible tells us that Hiram erected 2 pillars in front of the temple? And I can't find anywhere. Well, he named them Boaz and Joachim, or Joachim, with a J. Joachim and Boaz. One means he established, the other means something else. Can't make it. But nobody can explain why the tabernacle didn't have 2 great giant pillars in front of it. But the temple that Solomon built had these 2 pillars that the Bible says that Hiram built and put in front of the temple. Well, Ramesses put 2 of these obelisks in front of the temple at Luxor in Egypt. You know, is there a possibility that in front of the temple that there was 2 obelisks that were standing? Because I find no legitimate definition or explanation as to why those 2 pillars that were in front of the temple that Solomon built. Now, like I told you, this is just for thought. I mean, I can't prove to you one way or the other, but it's just for thought. Could that have been the case that 2 obelisks were? Well, what would Solomon be doing with something that primarily come out of Egypt and is spread throughout the world and so forth? Why would he be doing that? You know, well, I don't know. Why was he marrying Egyptians and Ethiopians? And you know, there was a lot of things that going on that defies, you know, our understanding. You know, so you just keep that in somewhere in the back of your mind, or put it in the what's that file on the computer that you put the stuff in when you get rid of it?
Spam.
Archives.
Trash bin. You know, you do with it much of it, but here is just it's a thought, and it's all based on the dimensions and the way that the structure would look if I were to build it based on okay. Now, you see this obelisk here? That obelisk, and it's in Paris, France. That is one of the obelisks that Ramesses built and had in front of the temple. The other is still standing in Luxor in Egypt. They were twins, and it was a French archaeologist. They brought that thing, and it weighs tons. They brought it all the way from Egypt and set it up in this courtyard in France. It was originally located at the entrance to the Luxor Temple in Egypt.
Don't we have one of those in Washington, D.C.?
Here's the strange thing about all of this. You say, well, maybe Nebuchadnezzar, surely he wouldn't do that. Well, I ask the question, why have we done it all over the world? You got this one in France. You got an obelisk setting right in front of the Vatican in the court of St. Peter. Right there you have an obelisk setting there. Now remember what the purpose of these were. These purposes were to celebrate a pagan god. A god that, but you have one setting in St. Peter's Square, I think they call it, right in front of the Vatican. Or right in the Vatican. Right, yeah. Judy, let's see. Do you remember us in Vermont? We went to this place where they had a little store. It was kind of on a hill, a little store there, and you buy souvenirs and everything. And they had this structure setting out there in the middle of on top of, in front of this, that went up. It was an obelisk built there in Vermont as as some type of memorial or some type of deal. We have one that was brought all the way to New York that I know of. There are others all over this country. There are obelisks. Why? My question is, we put them up. Why do we put them up? If we put them up, why couldn't that be what Nebuchadnezzar had put up out there in that plain? Yes, sir.
If I remember right, it follows the constellations and stars line up. Am I close?
Nah, I don't know. I can't say about that.
Like the
But-
fire and different.
But, yes, ma'am.
I want to know, if that has survived all these years, what about the statues they built back in those days?
Well, there's some of those some of the structures that they built are still existing. The Sphinx, some of that stuff is, you can go until ISIS gets there. When ISIS gets there, it won't.
France sent ISIS over here, she's standing up there in the harbor. That's what she was designed after, was ISIS.
Let me,
Do you think the
let,
people
let,
may
let me,
not know the word of God, the people that's putting these up, do you think they know the word of God, or they just thought it was a nice design? And
I have no idea. I have no idea. Here's the kicker. Why would, I know when I was in the service, I used to, I bought me a pretty new car, a year or two old and so forth. And soldier don't make much money, so about the middle of the month, I'd run out of gas money. But being the enterprising young man that I was, I would go by the bus stop and pick up guys and haul them into town. You couldn't ask them for money, it was against the law, But they all knew that you drove up the bus stop and say, "Hey guys, you want to go to town?" They'd pile in the car and I'd get a carload of them. And on the way into town, they'd pull their bus fare out and give it to me. On occasion, and I don't know how many times I did this, but on occasion, I would get up a trip to D.C., and the guys would give me the money that a bus trip would up there and back would cost them, and I would take them up, drop them off at a corner in D.C., and say, "I'll pick you up here day after tomorrow at such and such time," and that would give me some money, because I was broke. But anyway, time and time again, I saw the Washington Monument. I don't give much thought about it, or what it was, or what it represented, or anything like that. I just wondered, why do you just have this shaft, and that's Washington's monument? Why is it like Lincoln, with a person or something? And I still don't have the answer, except to know that structure is an obelisk.
It doesn't always have to be that. I mean, if you're not building it in order to show some God who's not a God, if it's just a memory of something, or in memory of the people that died in the war, or something like that, it doesn't have to be bad, does it?
Well, I don't know. I'm only telling you what I'm thinking. I can't tell you. To me, why would we construct something that was a memorial to pagan gods And if you really read about this, it really gets shocking as to the representation of what it is. In fact, let me see if I can figure out a way to say it. It is a representation of the reproductive organ of the male.
It's a phallic symbol.
I'm sorry?
Phallic symbol. That's how you say it.
Okay,
Phallic
okay, thank you for that.
symbol. You're welcome.
Let's get going back to my thought is, could that have been setting out there in that plain an obelisk? And Nebuchadnezzar, wanting to outdo all the others, he plates his with gold, so that you could see it from miles and miles and miles, you know. Like I said, now I don't have any concrete evidence that that's what it was. Hello? But anyway, it's just a thought, okay? It's just a thought. Yes, ma'am.
I would just think that God never instructed in all of his instructions for temples and everything in the scriptures, never directed man's building culture that. It always represented to me in a pattern. If you look at a pattern of what it represented every time that we know in history. And God never instructed man to do that. It's just like when ISIS or Al Qaeda, whatever, destroys something, they build a mosque to celebrate that they had a victory there. And anytime you have something that has an ungodly origin and is repetitious as an ungodly origin, I don't think it should ever be used.
I'm not sure, I wouldn't say that there's anything good in all that. In fact, I forgot to mention, there's one in London. Sitting in a prominent place in London, they have erected numbers.
In Egypt, though, they lost a lot of their monuments and stuff. If you remember, if you visualize the Sphinx, where it's got part of the space going on, during the war that came through there, they destroyed a whole lot of those monuments that were over there. Just the same as ISIS is doing over in those countries now, destroying all those things that represent what they don't believe.
But at Saccharin, there's still things that things that are from the time of Joseph that are still there. I think that man has been duped into taking something that represented something that was totally anti-God and utilizing it for whatever reason, you know,
It's
the
because they don't know
representation.
God's word. I mean, once you get exposed to the word, then you're responsible for it.
Yeah. Okay, well, the phone's going off. Anyway, we'll start right here. The prophetic aspect of the
Don't
image.
build on it.